PI Perspectives.
I want to talk to everybody today about ScopeNow.com. ScopeNow has been a big-time sponsor of this program for quite some time, and I just love their service. I've been using them since the beginning. I'm one of their beta customers, and it's been so awesome to see them grow into the business that they are today, and just how they just keep reinventing themselves and pushing themselves to get more and more information. What it comes down to is ScopeNow is a tool that you definitely need to use if you do social media investigations, any internet research, and really spending less time digging around and looking for information. I think is one of the best points of how ScopeNow can help you. Their AI platform, their analytics are amazing. You really get an idea of what you need. And you're reducing the time, you're reducing the manpower that you're spending on doing this research, because they're essentially doing it for you, and they're doing it correctly, which is most important. One of the new things that they're actually offering is this flagging system where you can flag behaviors and really highlight and look out for fraud. If you're doing a lot of fraud research, this is a fantastic tool, and you can set up alerts. So you have particular people that you're looking at, you can actually set up alerts to get notifications when the criteria that you set up is actually is flagged and goes off. It's really amazing, and their relationship and association analytics are top notch, really cutting edge, and really cool. When they brought that out on version 3, it was a game changer. I mean, really being able to see how people interact together and having that relationship, analysis is really something that's cool. And one of the other things about being involved with ScopeNow is their ability to offer webinars. Their team is cutting edge on putting together and getting out really great content. If you're a member of ScopeNow, if you know who they are, you've seen them around on LinkedIn, you'll know that they're constantly doing webinars on these new websites that are coming out, and they're really staying on top of it. And don't forget, any reports that you generate, you can actually white label those reports and put your own logos on and really make them look professional, which could equate to more billing for you as well. So check them out today. It's www.scopenow.com. They're a great company. They should be one of the tools in your toolbox, along with whatever kind of search engines you do. You need to make sure that ScopeNow is a part of that suite there. So sit back and enjoy the show.
Welcome to PI Perspectives. We have a bonus episode today. Matt sits down with Eddie Cruz, a seasoned veteran of surveillance in New York. New York has some of the biggest challenges when it comes to surveillance in an urban environment. So today it's all about the art of surveillance with our guest, Eddie Cruz, and your host, private investigator, Matt Spaier.
And welcome everybody to this week's episode of PI Perspectives. This is your host, Matt Spaier, and we are staying in New York State. And today we are talking to the surveillance guy, Mr. Eddie Cruz. Eddie, how are you?
Good. How are you, Matt?
Good. So, Eddie, I have come across you on LinkedIn. I've come across you on some podcast episodes, and you have an extensive background in surveillance. And I thought it'd be cool to come on and bring you on and have you talk a little bit about what you do and some of the challenges that you faced this past year, and some of the things you hope going forward. And before we jump into all that stuff, why don't you tell me a little bit about your background and how you got into the business?
Well, I was a police officer with the New York City Police Department. After patrol, I went right into narcotics, where I entered as an undercover, and I had the privilege of having some really good supervisors, and they utilized me in a lot of unorthodox ways. I had certain privileges that others didn't, because they had confidence in me right away. And I also was used by the FBI task force and the DEA task force. I was recommended to them on certain operations that they were doing. I did a lot of large investigations.
Right.
In New York City. I was assigned to the borough of Queens, but I was on a major case team, so I did undercover work throughout the whole city, and I trained a lot of undercovers while I was an undercover myself, and I also did a lot of ghosting operations.
Right.
And after I retired, I dabbled in the PI business for a little while, and then I wanted to reinvent myself, and I tried that for a little while still doing PI work here and there.
Right.
And then after a while, I went right back in, and it just became like a full-time job for me.
Yeah, yeah. And for folks that are watching on YouTube, you're kind of like, where's this guy? What's going on? So part of the deal that Eddie and I had was we're not going to show his face because he's a surveillance guy, and we want to protect that part of his business. So you're looking at these wonderful books that he's written. So if you're listening to the podcast, you're like, I don't know what these guys are talking about. But if you're looking on the YouTube channel, you're seeing the books, and that's the reason why we're doing it. So yeah, you've had an extensive background, man, and I think very interesting taking that law enforcement aspect of what you did, and then changing it and kind of molding it more into a civil side, and being able to gather information. So it's like you have the best of both worlds, and working with federal agencies and city and state agencies, and then doing this type of work too. What was that challenge of trying to pivot a little bit?
Honestly, it wasn't really too difficult for me, at least, because like I write in my first book, I got a lot of my training in the street. So when I became an undercover, it was like pretty natural for me. I knew the lingo. I was good at judging human behavior, and so it actually came pretty natural to me in the beginning.
Right.
It actually felt very easy doing surveillance, but then it started to get difficult. In the mid, like around 2005, 2003, I noticed that people were just a lot more hyper vigilant. And so I had to, study and figure out what other people were doing. If what I was doing was not good, or if what they were doing was better. And pretty much we were all doing the same thing. And I just decided to become more creative in how I did stuff. And I developed my own unorthodox ways of doing surveillance, and things that probably didn't make the companies feel comfortable. But I didn't believe in sitting in front of someone's house. Sometimes I'd sit like a block or two away, as long as I had a visual of an entrance or an exit.
Sure.
And that's the way I did it. And a lot of it was gut reaction, and a lot of guessing and anticipation, and it's worked out for me.
That's great. That's great. And I'm sure you've seen, as your career has progressed, how technology has both helped and hurt what you do, right? On the helping side, well, that's pretty obvious, right? Smaller cameras, we're able to do things. But on the hurting side, now everybody's got cameras, and everybody's hyper vigilant, like you said, right? Everyone's aware of their surroundings. Apps like Citizen, where they're alerting to people of things going on. Like, folks are looking, they have their heads up, looking for things to happen. So I can imagine that would be a challenge, right?
Yes, absolutely. And especially around children, you have to be even more careful around that. Like if you're near a bus stop, or like if the location that's on the target location is under observation, if there's a school bus stop there, you just have to be very careful where you park, and when you pull out that camera. Sometimes it's better not to take out the camera. A lot of companies want you to take time shots. I'm sure you're familiar with that. And sometimes, I have to skip that hourly time shot, because it's just better for the case. I just can't be robotic and take it every hour on the hour. I understand why it's done, but sometimes in order for you to protect yourself and the integrity of the case, it's better to just keep the camera down and just, articulate it in your report.
Sure. I mean, that's a real easy explanation if you ever have to testify to. Like, oh, well, why didn't you do this?
Right.
Here's my reason. I don't think a juror is gonna say like, oh, well, this guy's full of it because he didn't take a shot every hour. I mean, that's a stretch in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, I can totally understand that. So what would you say was the most important thing you learned when getting into this business?
The most important thing I've learned is to not assume anything.
Right.
You know, um, the people you're following are not following a script. I said earlier that I anticipate things. There's a very a careful balance with how I do that.
Right.
But to not assume what someone's gonna do, because then you're gonna be left flat-footed. You
Sure.
know, and you're gonna be embarrassed.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think you got to be ready for anything too, right?
Yes, absolutely. Whenever I go out, I'm fully prepared to go from mobile surveillance to foot surveillance to hailing a cab,
Right.
jumping on a bus, whatever it takes.
Right. Right. Yeah, I heard you talking about that with Scott Fulmer on his
Yeah. Mhm.
podcast, and it is a different animal trying to do surveillance in New York, and
Yes.
it's funny when you get the phone calls from people outside the state, and they're looking to hire you to do something. It could be insurance company or whatever,
Uh-huh.
and you're trying to explain to them, you need a 2-man team or a
Right.
two-person team, right? And they're
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I don't want to pay for it." Well,
Right.
then you're not going to get the result you're looking for.
No.
It's like you have to make the investment if you want to do business in this state. If you want to do things the right way, it's going to cost you money to do it, and that's one of the toughest sells, I think, when dealing with
No, absolutely.
people looking to
And I
hire
say
you.
it all the time. I think that the client sometimes spends more money by just using the one surveillance operative,
Correct.
because you have to be much more careful. You're much more likely to lose the subject,
Yeah.
because you're being careful, and you have to go out on multiple trips to the same location where you might have been able to resolve it in 1 or 2 days
Sure.
with two people or
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, I think some people get it and some people don't.
Right.
They're on a budget. They want to, I almost feel like sometimes they don't even care whether or not you catch the person. It's like they just got to check it off a list. Yes, we did a surveillance,
Right.
and and I feel like sometimes they get caught up in that. And this is just my own opinion and the experience I've had, and I don't have a lot of experience in surveillance. It's not really my bread and butter. I did actually, when I started in this business a long time ago. I worked for a pre-employment screening company that also did integrity checks on employees. And
Yeah.
one of the things that we were hired to do was to follow employees of like construction type companies, right? So they would have these delivery trucks, and we were supposed to follow these delivery trucks,
Uh-huh.
starting off in Manhattan and going, following them wherever they went.
Right.
And man, it was difficult because you got traffic lights, right? So that's one of the things that you got to deal with, right? I can't run red lights, to do it. But also at this particular time, my employer didn't have a small camera. I basically had one of those VHS cameras that you put up on your shoulder. So here I'm like, I'm driving through
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
streets of Manhattan, one hand on the wheel, the other hand holding the camera in place because
yeah.
my employer didn't want to put two people on the job, man. It was super
Exactly.
crazy.
You have to do everything yourself. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure you've got tons of stories like that too, man. It's back in the day, it's like you had to do what you had to do, and it was tough. And then, I recall a few times getting burned, and when a contractor, a roughneck guy, figures out that you're following him, he's not going to just say beat it. He's going to come up to your car and then want to really make you leave and not come back. So
Yeah, yeah. Some people are very combative. They'll come,
yes,
they'll hit your
yeah,
car, they'll yell at you, they'll pull you out to fight. It could
yeah.
get pretty pretty scary sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that I mean, and I'm talking. This was like in the '90s. So it was like, people were very upset in the '90s. It was very
Even
crazy.
now though, I hear stories from other PIs that they have to call the police. They end up coming with 4 sector cars have to come to the scene to
Yeah, crazy.
control the neighbor. You know, who's
Yeah,
all out of shape.
yeah. It's all it's nuts. But listen, now it's a lot easier. But I think just being able to I guess, articulate to your client what you need to set yourself up for success is important too. I think they always approach it like, here's my budget and I just want it done. And it's like, okay, well, if you want it done, let's take a look at your budget and see what the proper way to do it is. Like, that's a challenge. And I get so many feeler phone calls
Mm.
where we'll start having that conversation, and I basically break it down to them what's required, and then I never hear from them again because, like, they don't want to spend the money or they just don't want to put the effort in for it.
Well, it's expensive, but they don't, they don't know, actually know exactly what goes into it,
Sure.
and, especially if you got really good surveillance operatives,
Yeah.
who really go all out,
Yeah, and there's an art to it. I mean, listen, you've made a career out of it, doing that work, and that's really your work product, right? It's pretty much working for other investigation companies, right? They
Yes,
sub
yes.
out to you.
For other PIs, and even though I'm licensed, I just choose to work that way, and without all the responsibilities of having a company and
Sure.
having to deal with the client, like you were mentioning earlier. I mean, in fact, when I go out there, I treat it like, like I'm dealing with the client, because I could feel what you, the owner, might have to go through and explaining to them that you lost the subject. I mean, not too many clients are happy to hear that. They think that, like TV, like you're never going to lose a subject, and maybe you were sleeping, so I take it very seriously. I try really hard not to embarrass whoever hired me.
Yeah. We had
unavoidable. I mean, things happen,
We had a subject that was riding one of these motorized scooters, going through the city that we were following, and we lost the guy because he decided he wanted to go on in the bike lane over a bridge. So he was going over the 59th Street Bridge, and got into the bike lane, and our vehicle could not travel in the bike lane, and he was gone for the day. So the next day we picked him up, we had somebody on the other side with a bike, and he did the same exact thing, and we picked him up that way with the other guy, and it went seamlessly, and we were able to get what we needed to get. But you got to be creative. I would have never guessed the guy was going to do that, but he did.
And I had something a little similar to that, and the owner of the company actually got upset with me. But I mean, I don't know what else you could do. I mean, I was following this guy. It was like 4 a.m. He comes out of his building, and nobody knows whether this guy has a car or not. So he walks, several blocks. I'm on foot, and I see him stop at a bus stop. So I'm like 4 blocks away. I run back to my car. I get in my car. I watch the guy get on the bus. He goes from that bus, get picked up by the bus. He goes to another bus stop, switches over to another bus, and then he arrives at this hospital. And then so I park my car real quick. I get out on foot, and the guy crosses the street. And what does he do? He jumped into a car.
Yeah.
and so then the owner got upset. Said, "Why didn't I follow him with my car?" I mean, it's you do your best. I mean, that's what you could do. I mean,
it sounds like this guy knew somebody was watching him. He's being that careful and doing all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely could be. I mean, these guys, a lot of them, especially in insurance, they know that that they're being followed. They're told by their attorneys and stuff like that. And,
sure.
But,
Yep. Absolutely. So, okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we jump back in, we're going to talk more tools of the trade here and war stories and all that good stuff. So everybody sit tight, and we will be right back.
PI Perspectives.
Today, I want to talk to you about the Investigator's Toolbox. Many of the folks who listen to this program actually have already signed up and have joined this online community for investigators and the investigative community. It's a place to go for networking. It's a place to go for continuing education, watching webinars, doing your continuing education credit. It's a place also to read up on the latest trends in the industry, stay on top of all the news articles. It's actually supported by some really, really great businesses that support our industry. They're offering discounts and benefits actually for your membership. And then the OSINT catalog. We got a huge OSINT catalog that you can make your own private library. You essentially pick and choose what you want to be in your library, however you do your research. Check it out today. It's www.investigators-toolbox.com. Listeners of the show, if you use the code PIP, 201836, you'll save an extra 20%. Investigators-toolbox.com. Go check it out today. Okay, we're going to try something a little bit different. This is a call to action for you, the listener. So appreciate you guys tuning in and supporting the show the way you do. And I want to make it more interactive. I was thinking, what are you guys thinking? What questions you guys have? What topics do you want to see covered? What guests would you like to have on here? I want to hear from you guys. So reach out to me. And the best way to do it is to send me an email, or better yet, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. That would be really, really helpful to go onto YouTube and just hit that subscribe button. That is a driving force for sponsorship. Do you like the way the show sounds? Do you like the guests we have? Do you like everything that we do? Well, that comes because we have sponsors. So subscribing is a big, big, big mountain for me getting that kind of traction on the show. So go ahead and subscribe there. You can subscribe on iTunes as well. If you do the Apple podcast thing, that's very, very, very helpful. And leave a comment. Comment with an idea, and I'll go and I'll take a look at those, and we'll select and we'll start, trying to cater the content towards what you guys want to hear and what you want to see. And what I'll do also is I will do a drawing, and I'll pick your name out of a hat if you submit content, and you could potentially win a Investigator's Toolbox membership if you're in the investigative community. So go out there, guys, and let's get it done, and give me some ideas, and hopefully you can win a membership.
Need some investigative work done in New York? Look no further than Satellite Investigations. With over 24 years of investigative experience, Matt and his team offer the best service out there. There's a reason why Satellite Investigations is known as the #1 personal injury investigative firm in New York. So visit satellitepi.com to learn more. PI Perspectives. Check out the PI Institute of Education at piinstitute.com. Since 1989, Kelly Riddle has been teaching on subjects such as surveillance, nursing home investigations, insurance fraud, domestic investigations, hidden assets, and accident scene investigations. The PI Institute of Education is a featured learning partner in the investigatorstoolbox.com. So check out the free content on the site, then visit the Institute for more great savings on additional classes. You don't want to miss the NALI Virtual Conference on February 19th. It's conveniently scheduled from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. and is packed with great speakers and sponsors. Time after time, NALI has provided top-rated content and some of the best networking available in the industry. Visit nali.com for more information. And speaking of meetings, NCISS is offering a free town hall meeting on February 10th at 12 p.m. Central Time. All investigative and security professionals are invited to update you on some legislative issues. If you're a PI or in the security field, you should attend. These issues will affect our industry and how we do business. You can get more information at nciss.org.
And welcome back to PI Perspectives. This is your host, Matt Spaier, and today we are talking to Eddie Cruz. Eddie is the surveillance expert. He's written a couple of books, both in English and Spanish, Surveillance Manifest and Surveillance, a Concept of the Art, which is available in Spanish as well.
It was a bit of a challenge, but, right. I got it done. I was able to find someone that could really help me brush up on my Spanish.
Sure. Okay, so let's jump back into it. Let's talk about gear right now. Like, what's your favorite camera to use these days?
The model, just the camera. I mean, just a camcorder is my favorite. I have a small one,
mm-hmm.
and sometimes when I go out there, the clothing that I wear, I always have clothing that has multiple pockets, or I might even wear cargo pants sometimes, and even in the summer. So I'm able to tuck this little camcorder that I have in my pocket, and it's my favorite because you know what, I could zoom in with that,
right?
And it just, I just love the camcorder.
Is it something where it's like Bluetooth to your phone?
That's one of the hopes I have of them creating something that I could control through my phone,
right.
Where I don't have to have the camera in my hand and I could, actually zoom with the camera, and if it's in my car, if I'm able to allow the camera to pan
Right.
without me having to be, right on top of the camera.
Sure. Sure.
But no, mine is just a basic camcorder, and has a really good zoom. And I created a box, or like out of a shoe box with a small hole where, I could even carry it in public and film, put the box down, carry it and film with it without anyone knowing anything.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Well, so yeah, I guess you got to be creative like that sometimes too,
Yeah,
right?
you have to, yeah.
Not just what comes out of the box. And sometimes you got to fiddle around with it a little bit and
Yep.
figure out what works for you, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So is there a particular low light camera that you think is worthwhile that you prefer to use?
Um, well, I also have night vision, a separate device
Mhm.
that I connect through a lens onto my camcorder. It's the PVS 14,
Okay.
and you could see in complete darkness with that camera. The only problem is there's a lot of adjusting that you have to do because you have multiple lenses.
Right.
So sometimes it's a little blurry, so you just have to play around with it a lot. It's great to use it from your car. Not so much out in public because it's just too big.
Right.
But I have one camera that has infrared, but it's only clear up to up to 5 feet. So beyond that, it's really not that effective.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are your feelings on these stationary cameras, the ones where you go and you like set them up on a telephone pole or a tree or whatever, and then come back? Do you find yourself using any of that stuff or not really?
No, I've been looking into it. You're talking like those trail cameras that the
Trail
hunters
cams.
use?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I've been looking at a couple actually recently because I was working on a project, and I think the hunter style camera works the best because it comes camouflage.
Right.
I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about brands. There's always
Yeah. Go ahead, man. If there's something you like, go ahead. Yeah.
there's one that I've looked at for a long while. It's called Brino, but
Mhm.
that's not it's a time lapse camera,
Okay.
but it's not camouflage, and it's not, I'm not even sure if it's weather protected, but it's small, and that's what I like about it. But with the hunter cameras, like the trail cameras, they come with all kinds of attachments and ways you could hook them up and stuff, and I just don't have I mean, those are for like unique circumstances. I don't really have that many like that, but it would be great. Like you see on some of these movies where a guy sticks up this little button on the wall and they're able to see what's going on from 4 blocks away.
Right.
I wish they had that, but haven't been able to find something like that.
Yeah, I mean, like, where do you see all this technology going? I mean, I would guess that things are going to get smaller and easier to use would be my guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just go online and I just, I just I Google different phrases and words and I'll see what they have, and I'll go to YouTube and I'll see what other PIs do. I do a lot of research. I research what other guys are doing, like I said earlier,
Right.
and they'll say something that'll get my attention, and then I'll look it up and see what it's like, and see how other people like it, how they don't like it, and and that's how I basically get my equipment, and
Right.
also trial and error.
Right.
I just returned something the other day, because that's part of this business. I mean, it's you buy equipment and they sell it, they market it one way, and then when you get it, you actually see that it's really not that feasible for what you want to do, and so you end up even having to keep it or you return it.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. I mean, I would think you would have to do the trial and error just to get comfortable with what you're using there. So tell me, what are some of the challenges that you've faced in this past year with COVID and trying to do surveillance type work?
For me, it's just there's not that much work. That's number one.
Right.
It's really slowed down, and I guess with everyone being home, you're sitting on a block now. Before, people will go to work,
Right.
and you'd have maybe about 20% of the residents in the community. Now you got 100%. Everyone's home. They're working from their computers,
Right.
or they lost their jobs. And so it's a lot tougher that way to do surveillance.
Right. I mean, I would think also the fact that there's less people out there. If you're looking for somebody out and about, that there's going to be that challenge of there's less people for you to blend in with, right?
Yeah, that and or they're staying home. They're not even coming out, because there's nowhere to go. Everything's, depending on, like, Long Island and the city is different. I think more places are opened out here on the island.
Right.
City, you have in some places just completely shut down,
Right.
and there's just nowhere for people to go.
Right. And your coverage area is pretty much the island and the city, or do you go other
Yeah, I
places?
do all over. I go to New Jersey. I've gone. New York, upstate, Long Island. The suburbs.
Right.
Wherever they send me.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So do you do a lot of like prep before you, like when you get your assignment, do you do research to
Yeah.
figure out your target,
Yeah.
media stuff? Or?
Well, the target, usually the person that hires me, the PI, they already done all the background. And then I'll do a little bit on my own. Like, I'll go on their social media sites, or I try to look them up on social media.
Right.
And see if I could find something else. But I'll get on my phone or on my computer and I map out the location. I get a satellite view. I try to see where are the possible, good observation posts, because a lot of people won't pay for, like, pre-surveillance, like, for you to actually go on site and get a quick look and then go back home.
Right.
So if they don't allow that, then I just do it from my computer. And then if I have a location where they might be going to, like if there's a job or an address that they're suspected to visit often,
Right.
I'll run it through Google Maps and see what direction are they likely to travel.
Right.
And I take all that into consideration so that when I get on the site, then I'll know exactly where I want to sit, and set up an observation post.
No, that's great. I think you got to do all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
It helps you, plan for anything, right?
It helps you. Yeah, and then while you're there, you're also preparing for the next day, because you watch and you see, who's coming out at what time to walk their dog, or what days is garbage pickup, recyclable. You watch all those patterns and who's going to work, and who's going to school. This way, if you have to move your car up to another spot, you could do that a little bit more comfortably, knowing that everyone in that house is probably gone already.
Right. I gotcha. I guess these are tips and tricks that you've picked up along the way, right?
Yeah. You have to. I'm sure everybody picks up their own tricks, right? I mean, you're out there long enough, you get familiar, and everyone faces different challenges, right? And then you learn to adapt,
Right.
And try to do better the next time.
Is there someone that you can point to that was like a mentor or a big influence for you on how you do your work?
And unfortunately, no.
It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, right?
Yeah, trial and error, and also, my career as an undercover.
Yeah.
When I was doing, a lot of ghosting operations. You learn on your own. You learn what works, what doesn't work.
Sure.
You're hiding in the shadows all the time.
So for the audience here, can you explain what a ghosting operation is?
Ghosting is the way it's used. It's supposed to be used when you're going to narcotics. Is an undercover goes into a location. They're going to make a buy, whether it's a large scale or small scale, and you're there to protect the undercover, but you become part of what we call the set.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever the drug activity is going on, or wherever the residence or hotel room is that they're going to meet, they call that the set. So you become part of that environment. You have to find some way to become part of it, and you're there primarily to protect the undercover in case something goes wrong. But then when I was there, they kind of stretched it out a little bit, where now I began tracking the subjects, because a lot of times when the field team was going to come in to make the arrest, they couldn't catch these guys. They would start running all over the place.
Sure.
So they would use me to track them down.
Yep.
So what I would do is I would be, in the environment. I would see what was going on, and some guy, I could tell who's going to get away, and I would track them.
Right.
And then I would sometimes apprehend them from behind, and then just hold them there until the field team got there without anyone seeing who I was.
Sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So what would you say would be the number one mistake that most surveillance investigators make when they're trying to do the work?
Oh man, there's a lot of mistakes. Number one,
Nice.
not charging your equipment is
Yeah.
one.
Yep.
Not changing the date timestamp, not checking the time on the clock,
Right.
it was like, daylight savings times.
Sure.
If you didn't do that, if you didn't go in with a full tank of gas, if you don't have enough change in your car, you're from New York, so there's a lot of those muni meters.
Yep.
A lot of times, you just have to throw your car in somewhere real quick, and you don't have any change. It takes too long to get your credit card out and do all that other stuff. So
Yeah, well, it's nice to have apps now, right? You just put in the code of whatever the meter is, and then
right,
you can do it
yeah.
if that area has it. It's pretty neat.
People go to a location with a quarter tank or a half a tank. They don't think the guy's going to go too far. Next thing you know, you're on the New Jersey Turnpike, and you're done.
Right.
Not bringing enough food is another one.
Okay.
Because on these long surveillances, you've done them, that, after about 3 hours of being bored, you've eaten your lunch, your dinner, everything. There's nothing left.
Right.
And it's only 12 o'clock now. And, that's one of the things. Yeah.
Yeah, that could be a problem. Definitely.
Yeah.
So where do you see the future here in 2021? What would you like to see happen in the surveillance industry?
I would like there to be mandatory 2-man surveillance for every surveillance. I mean, I think that's just, I don't know. I've been wishing for that for years, but I think that's the way to go. I mean, I don't know if a lot of companies are going to agree with that, but
Right.
that's really the way to go. I mean,
No, it really is. I mean, it's the way you guys are trained initially, right? Through law enforcement, it's never a one-man job. To see it translate over, I think is important. And, you want to set yourself up for a win, like we were
yes.
talking about earlier, it's, there's a better chance you're going to get what you need to get if you're approaching it the right way.
That's the best way you can help the client out. And I said it also, I think I even mentioned it in my book. I think one of the worst things that we've done, some of us, is we've done such a good job at one-man surveillance that they keep doing it that way,
Right.
and that's a problem, and I'm still going to go out there and give it 100%, but
Right.
I mean, there's just so many things you got to do
Right.
to not lose this subject,
Yeah.
not to mention, traffic lights, they going through red lights and stuff like that. It could be dangerous. You don't want to do that. You don't want to encourage anyone to do that.
Yeah.
But if you have multiple people, it's easier to surveil someone like that, very close. If you're by yourself, you have to, allow for some room.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean,
It is.
you don't want a Princess Diana situation coming in,
No, you don't.
where you start getting into a chase and somebody gets
No,
really
and
hurt.
if you're by yourself, you got to give that person some space, and with 2 people, you could do a lot of different things.
Yeah,
A lot of different tactics.
definitely,
With one person, it's just too hard.
definitely.
And a lot of people nowadays, they know they're being followed.
Right. That's what I'm saying. The situational awareness of people in general, I think, is heightened.
Yes.
Especially with all the social unrest that's been going on this past year.
Yes.
I think there's just you got eyes on the back of your head, and you're trying to be aware of your surroundings. I would dare to say that even goes all the way back now since 9/11. I think that was a real
Yes. Exactly. That's when it started.
You know,
Yeah, right after that.
for people, starting to, they're pushing the situational awareness in New York, anyways.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
You don't put your head down in the subway anymore. You kind of put
No,
people
no,
around who's on the train with me
no,
before I read the sports page, right?
no, you can't do that. No.
So yeah, it's crazy. So I'm sure we'll see lots of technology and things coming down the line that'll hopefully make your job easier. And I anticipate there'll be a lot of really cool stuff coming, but who knows? So do you do any kind of, in this pre-work that you do you do any kind of geotagging, like or geosurveillance on people? Is that something more along the lines of the other investigators that are hiring or doing all that pre-work?
No, I don't do any of that. No.
Don't do any monitoring or any of that, right?
No.
Okay. All right, cool. So how do folks get a hold of you, Eddie, if they were interested in speaking to you about what you do or had an assignment to give you?
Well, some people contact me through my social media,
Mhm.
through Twitter. They get my email there, or even Instagram. I get a lot of calls through Instagram
Sure.
and stuff like that. And that's pretty much it, because like I said, I work with everyone. A lot of people know me in this business, so a lot of it is word of mouth.
Sure.
So they talk to one another, and then they'll call. They'll get my number through one of them.
Sure.
Or something like that. Or the people that don't know me, like out of state, that call me sometimes, they'll get me through Twitter. They'll direct message me or through Instagram.
Sure. All right. Well, hey man, I appreciate you coming on and chatting for a bit about what you do and your experience. It's always good to hear from somebody out in the trenches and who's doing it, and can talk about it and give some pointers and things like that. So thank you so much for coming on. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll catch everybody on the next show. Take care. Have a good day.
Thank you, Eddie, for hopping on. He really has some great experience in doing surveillance work. You don't gain this type of experience any other way than going out there and actually doing the work. So please make sure to check out his books on the topic. We want to thank Scope Now, Satellite Investigations, and the PI Institute for Education for sponsoring the show. Don't forget Matt's call to action for questions and topics. We want to hear from you. One lucky listener will win a cool prize. Have you checked out investigatorstoolbox.com yet? Remember, it only takes 49 cents a day to unlock the future of investigations. So make an investment in your business and yourself today. You can still save some money. Use code PIP201836 to save an extra $20. Once again, to reach Matt, just email him at matthews@satellitepi.com. You can also find him on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. As we said before, we want your feedback to bring you the best shows possible. We'll be back Monday with a new show. Make sure you tune in, please wear a mask, and stay safe out there.